Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Orange Ball Podcast. This is episode 3. I'm your host, Sam Winter, along with my co-host, Brendan Beall. Beall, how you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Another fine Wednesday edition. I'm ready to get this thing rolling again. Let's do it.
Yes, sir. Like we said last week, we're coming at you with weekly episodes. And as always, we are a college basketball podcast. But since it is the off season, we're a college football podcast, even though we're called Orange Ball. But
Somewhat of an orange ball.
yeah, somewhat. Kind of orange-brown ball.
Yeah.
But so first week of college football last week, lots of big games, lots of good moments. Rate your overall experience for the first week.
I think the first week is kind of a funny week in college football because you spend 7-8 months just making the most egregious takes about your team, getting all hyped up, and you see 60 minutes of your team, and now you think you already know what's going to happen all season, and you make a bunch of takes about it. It's so far from the playoff, but yet everyone wants to talk about how their team can't make it or they will make it. But this weekend I thought was a good weekend for college football. It was a good start to the year. I thought there were some good storylines. There's going to be some good storylines going into next week too. But great games, some big matchups like we wanted to see early on, which is fun. So I'd give it a solid rating. I think it was a great start to the year.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it wasn't bad. There are obviously going to be some better weeks, but I think one of the big storylines is Florida State losing 2 times before week 2. Nobody really thought that would happen.
Yeah, it's a bummer because they had to play 2 basically, as we like to call in college basketball, standalone games. John Rothstein trademarked. But they had to play kind of a standalone game against Boston College. And Boston College, I don't know if they're going to be good in the rest of the year, but that game really didn't seem close.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of thought like maybe Florida State would take out their anger or their frustration after that Georgia Tech loss, but I mean, Boston College, they lost to them even more than Georgia Tech.
Yeah, it wasn't even really wasn't close for most of the game. I mean, Boston College's quarterback, really underrated guy, and really quick and can get out of the pocket. And yeah, it seemed like he frustrated Florida State from the get-go, and they didn't really have any answer, and especially on offense, DJU, like, the guy is a good football player, and he's just bounced around to 3 places, and I think he is a good football player. So I don't want to dog on him or anything, but missing a lot of open throws. They just struggle to get the game rolling when he has the ball in his hands. It just it's a complete change for that fan base. Going forward now, you have 2 in-conference losses, which is terrible. I mean that puts you out of so many opportunities, and especially the way the U played.
Yeah,
I mean, we were watching that game together, and
impressive.
You talk on that because it was pretty impressive.
I mean, that was one of the bigger games, just with so many questions with Miami, especially after last year, and bringing in the ACC preseason player of the year with Cam Ward from Wazoo. They just went out there and dominated Florida. From the coin toss to the end of the game, Cam Ward looked like a Heisman candidate. He was scrambling and just walking out of bounds like this was the easiest thing ever.
He was kind of playing like it was a flag football intramural game, and he's playing on one of the hostile places to play in the country in SEC territory, and he's walking around on the field, kind of. I think when I saw that, and it was early in the game.
Oh, it was
like
the
first drive.
Yeah.
He's doing that, and you kind of go, "Oh man, he's gonna get ready to play today," and was completely unfazed by the atmosphere, completely unfazed by the defense of Florida, and yeah, it's we kind of touched on it last week, but it's gonna be a rough going for Florida, I think, for this year.
One thing I did see that he said in his post-game presser they were asking him about the environment, and I believe he said Oregon was louder, and who else? USC
I think he said
or UCLA?
I think he said USC and
Yeah.
UW,
And UW.
which is pretty high praise
Yeah.
for
I
the
know
West
Pac-12,
Coast, and
especially some place in Gainesville, and
oh yeah, I'd imagine that Florida fans aren't too happy, and you're probably going to start to see those GoFundMe's for Billy Napier's buyout
Yeah.
starting up, and that kind of thing. They take that stuff pretty serious, and it was kind of a game where if Florida wins that, you can probably justify going throughout the year with Napier, but now I don't see how he survives the rest of the year. I really do, and that's tough because it's just unfortunate, but that's kind of how the SEC and college football goes these days, I guess. So
yeah. One thing, it was kind of annoying, honestly. Like, every single game I watched, it was like, oh, now in college football, there's a 2-minute timeout. Did you know that the players can have communication at their helmets? And I was like, yeah, we got it.
yeah,
We don't need to
and
know
also,
anymore.
well, I don't know if you picked it up, but during the game, the announcers were calling it the 2-minute warning and then saying, oh, we've actually been told we're not supposed to call it the 2-minute warning. How does that make you different from the NFL? It's the same idea.
Yeah.
And then the in communication, that's been going on in the NFL for a long time. Like, that's not a new thing in sports or in football for the NFL. And I mean, it reduces the Connor Stallions of the world, I think.
Yeah.
No more big signs on the sidelines, which is kind of a unique thing about college football. But it does make sense that they would go to the in-ear type thing. But
yeah, I like it better. And speaking of Connor Stallions, did you watch that documentary that came out?
You know,
on
I
Netflix?
haven't gotten around to it. I'd imagine, I'm not going to say anything about it because I haven't watched it.
Yeah.
But I know he denied being at the Central Michigan game or whatever that they were playing, and I mean, he was there. I mean, there's no
Dave
he was
Portnoy
there.
said it.
Yeah,
Dave
Portnoy
went out and
says
said he was
so.
there.
He definitely was there. It's just kind of they roll out some of these documentaries pretty quick, but
Yeah.
I do need to tune in. I don't. Have you seen it?
I started watching like 5 minutes of it. It looked good. I need to continue to watch it, but it honestly sounds like he was like, I heard that Jim Harbaugh never met him.
Yeah.
Never even knew who he was or what was going on, and he was just some guy who loved football. And
yeah, I kind of had read up on him a little bit because of he made this recruiting manifesto thing where he knew basically thousands of high schools and in weird hot spots where Texas recruits at this high school in the middle of nowhere and they've gotten 4 players to the NFL and has that in a database and all this stuff. You would have to go through thousands of players and data to figure it out. So if you got, and Harbaugh, probably had no idea what he was doing, but if you got a guy like that who's so deep on the totem pole doing that kind of stuff, I mean, it probably just was plopped on Harbaugh's desk and he was like, okay, someone works hard, but it might have just been illegal, I guess. So,
I think I said Jim Harbaugh. I meant John Harbaugh.
Oh, I keep saying Jim too, yeah.
But obviously there's sign stealing in college football, like we saw, and they're trying to eliminate that. But they're being former people who work with basketball, me being a walk-on, you being a former manager, there's also prevalent in college basketball as well.
Yeah, it's a big deal in college basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, that's for sure.
And so there was an article published by Trilly Donovan, the Twitter account.
Mm-hmm.
If you know who that is, they kind of do like they're an anonymous, like
they
leak stuff. Yeah. But anyway, I'm just gonna read a couple stories from schools and managers that they submitted. Obviously, the schools are taken out of the paragraphs, but we're gonna go over them and talk about what we think. So this first one, I was a manager at a school, and that coach always had to scrub the print queue clean after we printed practice plans and scouting reports at hotels. When we were at an MTE, sorry about that, and I found a school's entire play sheet on the print queue. Didn't help us much because there was no explanations, but it felt like we were finding gold in the moment. We'd also run fake plays and shoot-arounds at away arenas and would have to walk around and unplug or turn off every camera in the building around. Had to do it in an NBA arena once. And you may think this is crazy, but this probably happens at almost every single school.
I think it's really prevalent. Probably at every Division One coach who maybe, Division One basketball coaches are, 45 plus, and they've been around the block and they know, cameras have been used and stuff. Like it's such a big, and maybe some of them don't even understand a lot of the computer stuff, but they know technology is going to pick up something.
Yeah.
And so, anyone who's been a manager or has worked in a college basketball, kind of world understands, like, people will use technology to it doesn't matter if it's completely misunderstood and you don't even know what it is, but anything you can get is going to be used.
Oh, for sure.
And so it is tough, when you go into a away arena, because, for a lot of people who may not know, you're going to the away team's arena either the night before or the day of for shoot around, and you don't know what's in the arena. Like, there could be a camera on you have no idea about, and I'm sure and if I was a coach, I would be terrified about, where are these cameras at?
Yeah.
Is something being hidden? Is something just blatantly on? And it's a real thing that happens,
Yeah. I mean, obviously you think of the TV cameras or arena cameras, but every arena has a, like, almost security-like camera at the very top to record, like, practices and whatnot. And even, like, you can't tell if those are on or off.
Yeah, there's no way of really knowing.
And who knows? There's probably been multiple times where it's happened, maybe even to our team or definitely other teams around the country, but you just don't know. And honestly, you probably will never know unless it comes out.
And what I was also going to say is, even for all the technology use and that are in arenas and ways to record and all that, still one of the biggest things is paper notes, practice plans, game plans that are on paper. And I know this is in the article, but, like, those being left behind in an arena is a jackpot for anyone. And as a manager, that was, one of my jobs. Hey, after practice, the away team's coming in. I'm looking in every garbage cans that are on the third deck where no one is even in. I'm still looking in there. Just who knows if we left something in there from a week ago. Someone lost something and it was thrown away by a person working at the arena. You have to check, because other teams will come into your arena and look through if you leave a garbage can out, it doesn't matter what's in it. Someone's probably looking through that garbage,
For sure. It's like the game within the game. And,
yeah.
And, certain managers will do whatever they can to make a good impression or do whatever they can to feel important for the team. And this one's another one from that article. This one says, I've stolen scouting reports on the road right from opposing benches. I've also got 3 to 5 scouting report / play cards from rooting through the trash on the road and at home. Sometimes I'll take a flashlight and try to decipher not fully erased dry erase whiteboards. Not always a huge return on investment. So I imagine, like, turning on the flashlight to see kind of the marks
what's
on the whiteboard.
What's been written down on a whiteboard.
And, like, literally going through trash, like you said.
Yeah, I mean.
It happens.
And it's one of those things where 99% of the time you're not going to find anything. But what if you did find a scouting report the night before a game, and especially these managers, a lot of them are guys who are just trying to, they may not even be noticed throughout the whole year. But what if you find a scouting report and all of a sudden,
you're the man.
You're the man, and you win a game because maybe okay, they're going to implement something new, that you never know. So it's definitely it's a funny thing that no one will really notice, but, like, as a student manager, you're doing whatever you can, and you're not being asked to do these things. But it's just one of those things that's kind of a game that everyone acknowledges, but people forget stuff.
Yeah.
And if you forget something in your gym, and it's found, I mean, no one's going out of their way to go into a locker room or going into closets or anything like that. But if you leave something in the garbage and there's a garbage can out, it's getting siphoned through. That's a big deal.
For sure, yeah. And there's literally people on staff of college basketball games that are assigned to look at what the other team's calling, like either through their voice or hand signals, because they've watched the film throughout the week, and so their main job is maybe during the week listening to film as loud as they can to see if they can hear anything, or looking at the coach of what hand signal or note that pops up. And so there's literally people that are watching the coach the whole game, and they scream out like switch, or like push, and they just know the play's coming. So shout out to those guys.
Those are the real grinders.
Oh yeah, those are the college basketball sickos.
Those are the grinders of the college. And again, if you are a college basketball fan, you have no clue that this is going on. And in college basketball, it's a little different because everyone has a very, and in football, I've never been on a bench for a college football game, but every college basketball team has very different kind of ways to signal plays and that kind of thing. A common one is just the coach being, running this or horns or whatever. That's a very common thing. Mm-hmm. But a lot of different schools have a dry erase board. That's one that I've seen. Play cards and stuff. But you'll get it doesn't matter what you're doing. You may have a dry erase board flashed to your point guard, but there's a defender staring right at your bench, and he's just going to yell out, what it is, and then the coach can hear that, and there's a graduate assistant in the back smiling because he's like, I knew that play was coming, and I have the notes down for it, and that's a sicko, but that's his job.
That's his role. Yeah. He shines in his role. Yeah. And what were you telling me before? Like, what if they did that? What if they used the football technology for basketball?
Yeah, I was just. May have had a couple cold beverages Saturday night watching some college football, and just kind of, they were talking about it on the, about the in-ear monitor system, but, and it's a little different because you sub so much, but could you imagine, your point guard has a, little in-ear, like an AirPod or something, and you got an assistant coach saying, here, we're going to run this, we're going to run push, and the boom, you don't have to do signals. Mm-hmm. That would completely change college basketball for just like college football where the sign stealing was prevalent. Now it's like, you can watch film and kind of know what's coming, but you don't know exactly what the signs mean. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of an interesting thing to think about in basketball. But
that's just like baseball, how they switched to the pitch.
Pitch,
whatever you call it.
Kind of technology for that.
Yeah.
It's a little different because you're subbing in and out. But it would be kind of funny to have that implemented, and your point guard just kind of, which he has to relay that message to the team somehow. So it's a little different, but without a huddle or anything like that. But it's kind of interesting to think about. Kind of funny to think about how they reduce sign stealing, but a lot of it's fair game, man.
Yeah, it's not cheating. It's just
it's what's going on.
Yeah.
It's.
But yeah, speaking of that, just to wrap up the college basketball part, it's almost secret scrimmage time. That's where it's called secret scrimmage because two college basketball teams just scrimmage each other in an empty arena, and no scores or stats are supposed to be leaked.
Supposed to
be. But we'll have them for you. We'll have most of them coming. They usually start about mid-October. I'd say.
And if a box score gets leaked, it's information that's valuable, I think.
Yeah.
But you don't always play a full game or
you definitely don't want to make predictions off it, but it's fun to look at.
See who's playing, see who's maybe shooting the ball well or that kind of thing is good to know. Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yep. Back to college football. So we got week 2 coming up, a couple big games. We have our correspondent here going down to Eugene.
Yep, I'll be making the run down, so I'll have some maybe have a couple posts on Instagram and stuff. But it'll be fun. You know, last week we didn't really talk about it, but you know, the two teams playing, Oregon, Boise State. It's a big game. If you don't know, Boise State has beaten Oregon 3 times.
0-3.
0-3. The Boise State faithful will let you know, especially the Duck fans. But Oregon struggled unexpectedly, kind of against Idaho. Boise State, Ashton Genty is a workhorse, that's for sure. He had 6 touchdowns, 270 yards or something around. School records in both of those, I believe. And it'll be, I think this is a good week now. I think if Oregon would have won 70-7, like a lot of people thought, then you're probably thinking the same thing. You know, this probably won't be a close game. But the struggles that Oregon had, I could see being the problem for them again, like kind of on the offensive line. They struggled. I think Boise State's got a strong defensive line. So I think this game is going to be closer than people think now. And you've seen the line kind of drop from 21 to, I think it's at like 18 and a half now. Yeah. So I think it'll be a competitive game. I mean, yeah. Unless, you know, Oregon figured some stuff out on offense, and really they weren't bad on offense. They just didn't really finish drives. Yeah, it was a little weird.
Yeah, Dylan Gabriel had a really weird stat. I believe he only missed like 5 passes.
It was like 41 for 50 or something.
Yeah, and had like over 300 yards passing, and they only scored 24 points.
Yeah, it was a, and I can't remember who I was saying this to, but rarely does a football game feel like this, but it felt very much like a basketball game in a way, where you're like, man, they just, especially in a basketball game where maybe it's, you know, a top ranked team versus a lesser opponent, but if you let them hang around, you know, and then Idaho had the recipe to win that game. The trick plays,
yeah, they were
making some stops. Everything. I mean, it was great. It was the perfect recipe. And if that game plays another quarter, they may win that game. It's just they had that kind of where it felt like a college basketball game almost, in a sense, where you're like, man, you know, they just can't. Oregon just couldn't get it going. No. And all of a sudden, you know, you go for it on 4th down at their own 40, and then don't get it, and Idaho pulls out the double lateral flea flicker like
to the wheel.
Off. It was perfect.
Yeah. Shout out Coach Eck over at Idaho.
Yeah, he did a great job. Yeah. And but yeah, I think Oregon's defense is really good. Their offense didn't help them at all with those 2 touchdowns, really. But it's probably going to be reliant on Ashton Genty to make some plays and not force them into throwing the ball the whole game. But I think it'll be competitive. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, that's gonna be
night game in Eugene will be fun. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I want Boise State to win. We'll talk about our picks later, but I don't know, man. Oregon they have some points to make up from last week.
Yeah, so. And that's what I'm. You know, I was thinking about it, and I think it's easy to say, kind of what I just said, where, you know, they didn't play well, and they couldn't finish drives, but defensively they could have held Idaho to probably 3 points. You know, just the offense didn't help them at all. Yeah. Giving them the ball, or giving Idaho the ball at the 40-yard line, and you know, of course they're gonna pull out some trick play. Like, yeah. At the end of the day, I think Oregon will probably fix a lot of things, and you know, Dan Lanning is. I'm assuming that this week of practice wasn't easy, you know. Oh, yeah. But yeah, their offense, if they score, you know, if they can get in the end zone, I mean, it was that game they probably should have scored 54 points or something along those lines, I would have imagined. But Gabriel's a good quarterback, and honestly, credit to Idaho. They played good. Like there wasn't really it didn't seem like a fluke, like that they were playing. They just had a lot of energy, and they would get a stop and you'd see they're shushing the crowd. Like that doesn't happen in Eugene.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen to a team like Idaho. They're just supposed to go in there and lay down, and it was pretty fun to watch actually, just to see a team like that go in there and play with that amount of energy was fun.
Yeah, because if you're at FCS school, you're obviously just going there to lose. So
Yeah.
you got nothing to lose.
Yeah,
Nobody
you're getting
thinks you're
paid
gonna
to
win.
be
You're
there.
getting paid to win.
Yeah.
You just played a great stadium, and they just were playing like they had nothing to lose, playing with house money. But
And I kind of read so many of Idaho's players are guys from Oregon, Washington, Idaho that weren't recruited by them.
True.
Like, I mean, that's something to think about in that game too. You could have played, Tennessee Tech or whatever, and they could have came in there and just collected their money, and they don't care. But there was definitely a fire in Idaho that was pretty fun to watch, and hopefully that continues. I'll keep an eye on them for the rest of the year because that was pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. I love the FCS playoffs come.
Oh, it's great.
Come playoff time.
Yeah. And Jason Eck has.
Yeah.
That dude's one of the best. I couldn't tell. I heard someone's talking about it. I couldn't tell on TV, but apparently he just has this play of this binder of plays that he's sifting through during the game. That's awesome. So
I love it. The other big game, it'll probably be game day, honestly.
yeah, I'm assuming it's announced.
Yeah.
I can't.
We got Texas visiting Michigan at the Big House. I heard Alex Orji was benched.
Yeah,
for a walk-on quarterback.
Too, yeah.
Shout out walk-ons.
Yeah, shout out walk-ons, man.
But yeah, I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Orji, Alex Orji.
I hope so. Yeah.
Who knows?
If not, this might get taken down.
Yeah, but Quinn Ewers coming in, leading a good Texas squad. Probably one of the most anticipated games it's a rematch of the finalists, or in the Final Four last year, Michigan playing Washington. Oh no,
they didn't end up playing. It was Texas and Washington, right?
Oh yeah, you're right. It was semifinalists from last year meeting at the Big House.
Yeah,
I believe I have the spread written down here. It is Michigan's 7.5-point dogs at home.
Yeah, they didn't look great last week. Fresno went in there and played a pretty good game.
Mountain West.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into the picks later, but it's definitely the headliner of the weekend. Earlier game, I believe. I think or for us, I mean, I think it's a 10 a.m. game, which will be fun. But yeah, Texas looked pretty good. Michigan, I didn't watch it personally, but yeah, they were kind of in the same boat as Oregon, where they probably felt like they left a lot of points on the off the board and got a good running backs and that kind of thing. So we'll see what they can do. Being at home is definitely a plus for them, I think. But Quinn Ewers is a really good quarterback, and they seem like they're kind of have an edge to them to get back to the playoff again and that kind of thing. So
yeah, we're gonna have our celebrity guest picker later. It's a surprise, and we'll pick some games and go over kind of last week. But right now, Beal, I'm gonna give you a blind ranking of sports events.
Okay, I'm excited about this.
So don't look.
Because I don't know them all, so we're gonna.
So you're gonna rank these 1 through 10, and you don't know what's
and is
coming
this
next.
is this like what if I'm attending?
Yes, you have to see if you're attending. And
so
one's the best, 10's the worst.
Okay.
So first up, we got the Masters. Where would you put that?
I think that's a pretty high one on my list. I think that's just a really unique event.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll put that as 3.
3?
Yeah, I think it's a 3 for me.
I like it. Next, we got NBA Finals Game 7.
This one's tough because if it's a Blazers NBA Finals Game 7, I'm probably putting that pretty high, but it kind of depends. I think I'd put that as I'll put that as the 5 spot. I think that's a good middle ground for me.
I would agree. Next, Kentucky Derby.
Kentucky Derby's that's also one of those unique events where it's like be kind of cool to go. I've watched it. It's fun. It's they have the main race is like what, a minute and a
Yeah,
half.
it's not very
It's
long.
pretty crazy. I'll probably put that at 7.
At 7.
Yeah.
So you got 3,
3,
5,
5,
and
and
7.
7. Yeah.
All right, next is the college football national championship game.
I think this one is probably just above. I think I'll put this at 2. I think
2?
that's a cool event, just because being a huge college football fan and I've been to some fun games, but I feel like there's probably an energy to, especially depending on where it's being played. I'm sure that's a really fun time.
Yeah, that would be sick.
Yeah.
Next up, we got the World Series Game 7.
I'm not a huge baseball fan, but the World Series is a little different.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's probably a good energy. I'll probably put that as a 6.
6?
Right behind what I have, NBA at 5.
Yeah,
I'll probably
that'd
put
be
that
fun.
at 6. I think that'd be a fun thing to go to.
Yeah.
Because at a baseball game, when you go to during the regular season, you're sitting down, having a hot dog and a beer, kind of hanging out. But I feel like if it's a World Series Game 7, you're probably on your feet the whole time,
Yeah.
and every pitch matters. That'd be
Mhm.
fun.
I would agree. Final 4, college basketball.
Oh man. So what do I have? I got
So you've got 2, 3, 5, 7,
I think
and 6. Or yeah, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7.
I think this has to be the 1 spot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you go Final 4, 1 spot.
Especially if it's I think that's one of the, and I've never been. You've kind of been there, not actually to the games, but around. I think there's a great buzz to the Final Four, especially if it's in a great city.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to do that. That'd be fun to go to the games and watch that.
The one thing I will say about that is I actually, when I was like in 8th grade, I did go to the Final Four.
Oh, you did?
The national championship. And because it's in a football arena,
Yeah.
we
yeah.
sat way up there and could barely see.
Yeah, that's also my gripe with that, is because you're not gonna be able to see the game very well.
Mhm.
But I think being at kind of a weekend, I think that adds to it. But yeah, the game itself is not the highlight almost, but like the just kind of the buzz, and then but if you had great seats, I'm sure it'd be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to have good seats for that.
Yeah.
Wimbledon.
I think it would be no offense to Wimbledon, but it's definitely the 10 for me.
Yeah.
But tennis has a lot of like pageantry and that kind of thing. I think that's cool.
Mhm.
But and they're great athletes. Like, I've played tennis, just for fun, and it's a workout.
Oh yeah.
And like, so they, respect to them, they are athletes. Like, they're good athletes. And but yeah, it's just be hard for me to sit there and watch that.
Yeah.
But hey.
I believe you got 4, 8, and 9.
Okay,
Next we got Stanley Cup Game 7.
that's 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like hockey, and I'd probably, going back, I'd probably have that up a couple more spots, because that's got to be one of the best. Playoff hockey is one of the best things to watch, and they play hard during the year, but when it's go time in the playoffs for the Stanley Cup final especially, that's some of the best hockey that you'll like. All that stuff is great, and the good thing about that is you're watching it from probably a smaller arena.
Yeah.
And everywhere you go in the NHL, they always have great crowds. Like, you rarely, especially in the Stanley Cup, you're gonna find a bad crowd.
No.
So
Electric.
it's fun to watch.
All right, so we got the 8 and 9 spot.
8 and 9.
We're going second to last. We're going Super Bowl.
Yeah, see, that's not a big one for me. So I'll put that at 8.
Okay.
I think with the Final Four, it's such a huge event, but you have so many fans that are, the college fan is a lot different than the pro sports fan,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot more of like you know, there's just kind of that extra juice to college sports that I personally enjoy, and I think the Super Bowl is honestly a like a corporate type thing where you have to be willing to pay us an absurd amount just to go to the game,
Yeah.
and you're probably not going to be great seats, and it's kind of to me what I would picture it as is just almost like an event for like super high class individuals and who may not even care about the game, and so I'll take that one down low, and I can watch that on the couch every year.
Yeah.
So
Football is the best to watch at home.
yeah.
And your 9 spot is going to be the World Cup final match, or your 8 spot. I mean, or wait, did you say it?
9. So that'd be 9. And I would enjoy that. I think that has a fun atmosphere to it, and it's the world's game, so it's definitely be fun. But if it wasn't United States, I don't know if it'd be the best. But I've definitely heard from other people that that's one of the best sporting events ever. But
Yeah, that would be pretty cool to go to, no matter who's playing.
I think my list is decent.
I like it. I like it.
I think let's see.
So you had 1 Final Four,
Yep.
2 College Football Championship, 3 Masters, 4 Stanley Cup, 5 NBA Finals, 6
World Series.
7 Kentucky Derby, 8 Super Bowl, 9 World Cup Final, 10 Wimbledon.
I think I'm flopping. If I had to go back, I would flop the college football championship with the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think the Stanley Cup would be the
Hockey's
cool.
just so much better to watch in person.
Yeah, it is. And again, like you're like watching football on the couch is nice. I love going to games, but if you're going to a college football game that's in an NFL stadium, it feels a little different than going to on-campus games. I think is where I would flop those, but I'm pleased with my list.
Good list.
With my list for sure.
We'll do another one of these next time.
Yeah,
Different
I'll come
category.
up with one for you next time. All right, so that's all the time we have for today. Unfortunately, no pick segment for today, but we'll have our picks posted on Instagram. Make sure to give our Instagram a follow, YouTube a follow, and subscribe. Subscribe and follow as well on Spotify. But I'll be posting a little bit this weekend from Autzen Stadium down in Eugene for the game. Should be a fun time. But yeah, that's all we got for today. So, Sam, any last words for you?
No, just thanks for watching. Stay tuned for this weekend. Be looking out for some game day experience vibes from Beall on the Instagram. And yeah, just come back for next week. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.